Hi, so I have a few thoughts about this video that you're about to see. I actually filmed it over the course of 5 days while the kids were home for the holidays, a little bit of the time. And let's just say that things didn't turn out the way I wanted them to look. Like in the first part of my head is cut off for some reason, and then the other day was quite foggy, so the lighting isn't quite right. But whatever, that's just the life of a YouTube nobody. I'm not gonna redo it because the content is pretty good. Actually, just kidding. That's up to you to decide. Relax. Take it easy. Are the things we tell ourselves when we just can't handle the stress anymore. I agree. Go ahead and relax while your screwdriver is whizzing at full speed as you're fixing the table. When an inconsiderate driver cuts in front of you in a lane without signaling.
Stupid! Stupid! Stupid!
When you're packing your camping bag for a trip in a hurry and forget the lighter. When your supervisor at work gave you the wrong instructions for handling the chemicals, and if you followed them to a T, you would have ended up blind. And then think about all of these events piling up throughout your week, and you get yourself a recipe for muddled memory and inability to focus on even more important things. Yeah, a burnout, but not from the things you can easily say no to, or perhaps you can't avoid them at all. You see, that's how good people with good intentions can bring misfortunes upon themselves and others. Think about babies and dogs being abandoned in hot cars during the summer. Think about deaths from carbon monoxide poisoning when someone forgot to replace the batteries in their sensor. Think about slipping on a puddle of water that you didn't see your toddler pouring on the floor, and you ended up damaging your back.
Oh, water everywhere!
I've read a number of self-help books on stress and burnout, but most of them seem to talk about ambition and meaning-seeking side of stress. Other books talk about coping with depression. And all of these are helpful, of course, but I find that people undermine the burnout caused by these necessary tasks of life, where our survival actually depends on being careful and doing things right. The Upside of Stress by Kelly McGonigal, for example, talks about treating stress as a positive rather than a negative thing, and that people with meaningful lives will naturally experience stress because they have goals to aim for. Again, helpful advice, but being burdened with details has nothing to do with lacking meaning. I mean, I value my life and I'm very goal-oriented, but that won't stop me from not reading the fine print in the process of purchasing a home, for example, and then losing a ton of money. So, without further ado, let's explore some strategies for managing this specific type of burnout. Some of these might seem unconventional to you, but they really helped me in my life. But first, I want to make it clear that if you have or suspect that you have a certain mental condition that is making these burdens of life unbearable to you, you do need to see a specialist. I am not a doctor, I cannot diagnose you, and I know that the things that I'm saying here do seem challenging, but if they seem extra challenging, almost impossible, then you need to sort other things out first before you attempt them. So the second point is where we actually get to work. And the point is, study the art and go back to it over and over again. There are very few things in life that we become good at by just winging it. But the more we practice, the more natural the thing becomes. When people talk about practice makes perfect, they usually mean a hobby or a job. But there's more to it than that. There are also unmotivating tasks that we must do well, like handling food and cooking utensils in a safe way, passing a driver's test and reviewing the road safety rules on a regular basis, reading manuals for medication very carefully, and analyzing the fundamentals and monthly reports of a stock in order to decide if it's a good time to buy or sell. It's also super important being versed in all the steps, jargon, and fine print of the documents you fill out while buying a home or a car. Yeah, learning all of these things can be boring, but if you do not follow them well, you might put yourself in a difficult or even potentially dangerous situation. And besides, studying these things in your free time makes dealing with them in real life less stressful. 3. Okay, this one might ruffle some feathers, but if you think about it deeply, it'll make sense to you. And the advice is this: consider yourself incompetent at what you do. The idea is that we need to be afraid of doing something stupid or harmful, because there's always a chance that we might. Never say to yourself, I would never do this. And no, it's not the same thing as being careful. I encourage you to take a step further to visualize you making that mistake, however unpleasant that mental image might look. For example, consider what might go wrong if you forget to check the child lock on a door that needs to be shut. What kinds of things will your child have access to now? What will he or she do with them? You see, in a modern world, people overvalue self-esteem. Don't get me wrong, we do need encouragement to lift our spirits up, but there are also life or death situations that go beyond just feeling good. Driving a car, for example, comes with important responsibilities, but people often care more about feeling like a good driver rather than being one. Being overconfident in yourself might actually decrease your level of caution and increase your risk of getting into an accident, even if another party initiated the problem. 4. Open your mind to others' feedback. Other people might actually notice details that you don't. Again, you don't need to feel like you're doing something right. You need to do it right. And other people might help you with that. For example, my husband is always my second brain while I drive, and I'm thankful to him for that. And by the way, this is not a video of us, in case you haven't noticed. And if he just happens to be in a naggy mood and is suggesting something unnecessary, I just keep quiet and focus my eyes on the road. It's easier to process information as helpful or not helpful if you're not in a defensive mood all the time. And it's not just driving. You might also point out that I'm storing some kitchen utensils in a bad place where kids might reach them. Or maybe it's time to ditch the tablecloth before our toddler pulls it along with all the silverware onto the floor. 5. Don't rush into anything. Take a pause, look at your steering wheel or a tool that you're handling, observe your surroundings, meditate if that's your thing, but make sure that you're processing what you're about to do ahead of time. You might just notice a puddle of water in front of you and not step into it, or remember to leave your car with your children or a dog by your side. Anything critical like that. Mute the thoughts and emotions in your head and just look at the world around you. 6. Stop obsessing over details that don't mean anything important. By being a perfectionist, you'll just burn out easily. Unless you're a superhuman who can fold your towels beautifully and color code them correctly, but also not overheat the oil in your frying pan, then by all means do so. But for most people, not overloading themselves is the way to go. Say no to OC. 7. Avoid distractions. There are 3 types: media, heated arguments, and focusing on trivial ideas of others. With media, whether it is social media, TV, or loud obnoxious music, we overstimulate our brains with unnecessary input when really we need to be in the moment. And doing too much of that really puts a strain on our focus. The calmer your brain, the better. Less stimulations means more focus. The other 2 types of distractions are social, and what they have in common is getting emotional over what the other person has said, even if they're wrong. And as we know, emotions cloud judgment and make us do silly things.
God, you're such an idiot!
If we do get into an argument, for example, it would be unwise to engage in a task that requires their precious attention right after. Cool the emotions first, detach, become a robot for a moment if you have to. Same goes for thinking about others' trivial advice. What do I mean by that? For example, my toast isn't crunchy enough, or you made a turn on the wrong street. I also understand that sometimes other people behave in an OCD way as well, and if I take what they said to heart, I might mess up with something else. What I actually need to do is prioritize what's critical if there are several things happening at once. For example, instead of running off to reheat that soft toast, I need to keep an eye out for the baby in his high chair, or put him on the floor at the very least.
You like French toast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
8. Avoid seemingly important tasks that take away our attention from other things. So I covered OCD and external distractions. But this one is a bit different because it's about all the unnecessary work that we bring upon ourselves and again, take away our attention from more important things. We see that a lot in the do-it-yourself culture, like making bread and mayonnaise from scratch or sewing your own clothes. It can also be time-consuming errands like going to multiple stores for specific discounts. There is nothing wrong with these activities on their own, but do evaluate your life, workload, and burnout capacity to compare their benefits versus their setbacks. As a mom of 3, I would rather do something that increases my attention span, like physical exercise or a coloring book. My children benefit more from a happy and energetic mom rather than someone who prides herself for baking homemade bread but is tired because she spent half a day in the kitchen. And to be quite honest, my bread is terrible anyway. 9. Don't have too many ambitions at once. Learn one skill at a time and do it well. 10. Keep a home safety checklist on a wall to refer to. This one's about all the small things you might forget about if you're overworked. And if you have kids or pets, then reviewing one from time to time is especially critical. There's a link to one I like in the description down below. And finally, 11. Delegate what you can to others. Stressed out by taxes? Hire a professional. Tired of putting your toddler down for a nap every day? Consider daycare. Don't feel the need to do everything yourself. You might just feel more refreshed and capable of doing more. And that's it. Those are my tips for managing everyday stress. Did I miss anything? Feel free to share what you find helpful in the comments down below. For now, I'll see you in another video. Take care and bye-bye.